Hello, everyone. Greetings to everyone who is joining us just a few minutes early. Love to see that we have people at it and ready to go. As we are waiting to get this webinar started at the top of the hour, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And for bonus points, if you have your own favorite tip or trick for whether it be technology or self-care for surviving the back to school season, go ahead and share that in the chat as well. We will be using the Q&A feature today, so make sure you go ahead and find that option in your Zoom toolbar, and we will be getting this started, as I said, right around the top of the 11 a.m. PT hour. Okay, we're already getting some great coverage from across the country. Lori, you and us, we are all excited about that Google Classroom rostering. It's definitely been something that we've seen a lot of excitement and traffic around. So for those who haven't checked it out, head over to our help center to search Google Classroom rostering, and you'll find some great information about our newer partnership with Google. Welcome to Diane, fellow Michigander. I taught in Southfield and Dearborn, so I love the Detroit metro area schools. So Michael's pro, he even has the emoji with the hat here. That is my favorite. We're very big on emoji as well as GIFs here at Clever. So we are all for that. Anything to bring some life. Welcome to those who are just popping in. We're probably going to get started in another about a minute or two. We know everyone's coming from other meetings and events, so we're going to start probably about 2 or 3 minutes after the hour. Right now, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, just where you're from. As I said, I also love pro tips for surviving back to school. We all know it's a busy season, so if you have any tips or things that you love, bring them in there. And also familiarize yourself with the Q&A option here in Zoom. We will be having an extensive Q&A at the end of this session to just talk about what's top of mind, as well as the content from today. As well as if you would like, please feel free to log into your Clever dashboard. There are plenty of tools that we're going to be demoing today that you can try right in the moment yourselves. So go ahead and head over to schools.clever.com and log into your Clever admin dashboard. Oh yeah, now the numbers are going up. Welcome, Taylor. Hi, Tracy. Cindy joining us from Valencia. Amazing. Yep, and I know that you probably have some colleagues I saw just mentioned here that can't make it today. Don't worry, just as always, we're going to not only share out this recording after this session, but we will also have this linked on our website at clever.com/events. If you haven't checked it out, we have lots of great webinars that we're hosting over the next few weeks. And we're also linking to all of those recordings right there as well. So we'll see it both at clever.com/events as well as at cleveracademy.com or clever.academy. Okay, Jess, are you ready? Are you feeling this? Amazing.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yes, let's get started. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to our discussion today on troubleshooting logins, as well as troubleshooting common sync issues. As I just mentioned earlier, we highly encourage you to log into your own Clever dashboard so you can follow along with the tools and the tips and tricks that we are sharing out here today, as they all are related to where you live and work. As always, we are recording this session and we'll email out the video as well as all the documentation that we're going to reference today. So our Help Center documentation is up and going for all of these tools and ready for you to access at any time. I think at some point during this webinar, we'll also be dropping in a great PDF with links to the documentation. We are going to really, oh, there it is. Thank you, Blair. So
Blair's on it.
So everyone download that PDF. You're going to love it. It has direct links to all the references that we are going to have today. And of course, we love a good Q&A here at Clever, and we're going to reserve a good amount of time today, at least probably 15 minutes, for a Q&A at the end of this session. So go ahead and enter those as those ideas pop in. We'll go ahead and start pulling those that we have some great questions at the end. So to find that, you can just look at your Zoom toolbar, and right in the center, there should be 2 chat bubbles that say Q&A. Go ahead and submit them throughout the webinar. So, hi everyone, my name is Alex, and I'm a member of our operations team here at Clever. And what that means is that it's my job to ensure that our support team, as well as our customers, have the tools that they need to be successful. As kind of mentioned earlier, I'm a former high school band and orchestra teacher turned techie, and I've been at Clever for the last 5 years supporting our customers and team members relating to the support function here at Clever.
Hey everyone, and my name's Jess. I'm a member of the support team here at Clever. You may have worked with me before if you've ever reached out to us for assistance, troubleshooting any sort of issue. Like Alex, I'm also a former teacher. I taught middle school career and technology education for 5 years before joining the ed tech world here at Clever.
So we are so excited to be here, not to just talk about troubleshooting in general, but also to share more information on our newest support tool that just went live about a month ago. We're going to start today by talking about some of our great tools for troubleshooting logins and sharing errors. We're actually going to provide a live demo, encourage you to follow along in your own Clever dashboard. So if going to keep plugging it, if you're not already logged in, get logged in because you're going to want to follow along with Jess. After that, we are going to share out some of our favorite tips and resources for debugging sync and data errors. You know, this is a very common issue for everyone, and we're going to share some of our own frameworks for making this troubleshooting process just a little bit easier. And of course, we're going to reserve some time at the end for our Q&A. So as those questions pop up, go ahead and enter those in the Q&A. We have Sinclair and Josh also helping answer some of those questions in live, but we'll answer some of the more common universal questions also at the end of the session. So ask away.
So the journey of solving common everyday login issues can be difficult. There's often a long chain of communication from students to teachers, to school tech leads, and then finally to you. By the time it's reached you, often multiple days have passed, and there are so many different factors that we know can lead to a data or a login issue. So how can you possibly know how to solve everything, right? At Clever, we're always asking the question, how can we give you guys the superpowers to fix issues quickly and easily so that students and teachers can fully engage in learning with their applications? Before we get started, we want to know what's on top of mind for you guys. We are launching a poll right now, and we'd love to know what's the most common issue your users report during back to school. Login issues, data rostering issues, maybe an app's missing in their Clever portal. What do you guys see on a daily basis? All right, we got a lot of data rostering issues. Login issues, looks like it's coming in second here. All right, so data rostering issues looks like it's topping out the charts at about 52% of you guys. Luckily, we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, sounds like we'll need a double click into that one, Jess.
Absolutely.
So we're going to start with one of the most common problems that we see in the classroom for teachers and students, and that is, of course, logging in. That's why Clever's here, right? Our Clever portal. So while debugging logins to Clever are actually relatively simple, generally you just need to ensure that a student or teacher has their account at Clever and that they also have an account in your identity provider, so Google Active Directory. And once you have those two complete, it works. However, troubleshooting logins to applications can be far more tricky. There are many reasons why a login to an application may fail. So as some of you may know, we have developed a tool to help make this troubleshooting process much easier, taking it from minutes down to simply seconds. And we call it the Troubleshoot login tool. So with the Troubleshoot login tool, Clever's system automatically analyzes 13 different pieces of criteria that are required for login success in just a few seconds. And in doing so, we identify the root cause of application login errors, saving you time and energy. So this superpower is available to any team member that needs it the most, meaning Clever admins, the district help desk user role, as well as school tech leads. We actually launched this tool before the beginning of last year and have been overwhelmed by the positive response from you and the rest of the Clever community. So to date, we've seen you and our customers in general use this tool over 90,000 times. And so when we estimate how much time this has saved you, we think that this is somewhere around 10,000 hours of cumulative effort, like incredible amount of time. And so hopefully you've already gotten to try it yourself, but if you haven't, this is your time to do it. So I'm going to turn it over to Jess, and she's going to show you how the Troubleshoot login tool works.
All right, guys. So if you're logged into Clever, now is a great time to go ahead and pull up that account and follow along with a student and an app of your choice. If you have a known login issue that's currently happening, maybe you got something in your inbox right before you join the meeting, that would be a great example to use. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to get that pulled up. So for this example that we are going to work on today, excuse me, a teacher has reached out to us and told us that Harry Smith can't log into the application Carmen San Diego. To begin troubleshooting this login issue, we're going to navigate to Support Tools, which is over on the left-hand side, and then click on Troubleshoot Login. For reference, you can also get to this page directly from any teacher or student profile that's in Clever for you. At the top of the page, there are two selection fields. This first one is where you'll enter the user. I'm going to select Harry. And then the next one, you'll select the app. So we know he's having issues logging into Carmen San Diego. We'll let the Troubleshoot login tool do its magic. And then we'll take a look at the results. You'll see that the Troubleshoot login tool has identified that the user is not able to log into Carmen San Diego because he's actually not shared with the app. In order to have him log in successfully, you'll need to do some editing to your sharing permissions. I do want to point out that there's a details section at the bottom of this page. It has a convenient link to the student profile as well as the app profile. And this just makes reviewing any additional info you need, such as adjusting those sharing settings, a breeze. Once we've made the adjustments and we've shared Harry with Carmen San Diego, he should be able to log into that application within 24 hours. Let's take a look at one more example while we're here. Let's say while we were speaking to Harry's teacher, she also let us know, oh, by the way, Harry can't log into Math Blasters either. So let's take a look. We're going to switch the app name to Math Blasters and see what the Troubleshoot login tool has to say about it. All right, you're going to see a little bit different message on this one. Troubleshoot login has identified that this is likely an app issue. What this means is that we were not able to find any issues in Clever that would result in a login issue for Harry to Math Blasters. And if you take a look over here in this test summary column, here's a list of all the things that we checked. In these cases, you'll see a recommended action up top. We recommend you reach out to the application support team, as their team's assistance will be required to resolve the login issue for Harry.
Thanks for that, Jess. So we love this tool and we love hearing about your experience with our tools. And we actually had Carmen Wilson share a little bit about his experience as a Clever champion using the Troubleshoot login tool over the past year. And he shared out this wonderful anecdote. He said, the Troubleshoot login tool allows you to go directly to the source. It's been a great tool for me during virtual learning, and it continues to make my job a whole deal easier. And we hope that this is true for you, all of you as well. Hopefully you have tried this tool and used it in your own work. And if you haven't, start using it. It's so great to take all of those manual checks and just turn it into a slap. I know that's so quick. Can't even think of what I want to say. But so either way, if you have school tech leads, know that you can add them and they can use this tool as well. So school tech leads, we have found, are one of the best ways for supporting adoption and access of digital resources in the classroom. And so as such, we've made this tool available to them directly in their Clever dashboard as well. We're actually hosting a webinar for this feature for school tech leads next Monday on August 9th. So registrations are still open at clever.com/events. So feel free to share out with any technologies leaders in your school or district. And if you don't have any school tech leads, check them out at support.clever.com. Learn about them. They are a really fantastic user role that can really help scale your district's digital resourcing. And so before we move on, something that we also know is really critical to login success is just getting into Clever, period, right? And so we want to give our annual reminder to update your district's tech support contact for the upcoming school year. So this is the school contact that is listed on your district's Clever login page and signals to teachers and students who to contact if they have a username or password issue. So this could be an email address, a phone number, or even a link to your district's help desk form. So this can be updated at any time by going to Portal SSO settings in your Clever dashboard. And then the other additional tool that not everybody knows about, and I hope that you spam this to all your teachers because it's amazing, and that is our backup login codes. And so backup login codes allow students to log into Clever even if their username and password are not working. So backup login codes can be generated by a student's teacher and provide them access to Clever even if they can't log in using their normal method. So for example, if they can't log in via Google, they're getting an error, they can still log in using a backup login code. So backup login codes last for 20 minutes and can be generated for multiple times per day so that a student never has to be blocked from learning. The root issue for the login will still need to be figured out and resolved. So for example, if they can't log in via Google, you'll have to figure out and resolve that username password error. However, the login code will ensure that that student can always access their learning through Clever, even if they're not able to log in during using their normal method. So by listing a tech support contact and leveraging backup codes with Clever, students and teachers never lose instructional time due to a forgotten password. So instructions for generating backup codes can be found in our Help Center and is linked in that PDF that we shared out earlier, and we'll share out again at the end of the session. And then similarly, we have a great we now have a troubleshoot sharing tool as well. So troubleshoot sharing issues is one of the most common issues that we see people coming to Clever support about for assistance. Figuring out why a user is or is not shared with an application can often feel like, really honestly, searching for a needle in a haystack. It can be a lot of work. So we've listened to your feedback and are happy to announce we have a brand new tool this year for the back to school season. And so we're excited to introduce the troubleshoot sharing tool. Easy to remember, folks, troubleshoot login, troubleshoot sharing. So this troubleshoot sharing tool uses the same exact interface as the troubleshoot login tool, providing analysis and insights in just a few seconds. So you're going to select a user and an application pairing, and the tool will tell you if and why a user is or is not shared with an application. The tool is fast and powerful and can be used for troubleshooting sharing for teacher as well as student records. Please note that the tool does not currently support troubleshooting for staff or sections, but we are hoping to extend functionality to these record types later this year.
All right, we are going to get back into a demo here. And we're going to take a look at this troubleshoot sharing tool. So we are going to navigate on the left-hand side, support tools, troubleshoot sharing. It's right below troubleshoot login. We got them right there for you together, easy to access. In our troubleshoot login demo that we just did, oh no, hold on, let me get logged back in. All right, I think we got it now. All right, you guys can see the screen now, right? Okay, thanks, Alex. So support tools, troubleshoot sharing. In our troubleshoot login demo that we did, we saw that Harry is not able to log into the app Carmen San Diego because he's not shared with the application. So to troubleshoot this specific sharing issue, we're going to simply search for Harry again and select the app and see what the tool tells us. Up first, you're going to see that troubleshoot sharing has once again confirmed that Harry is not shared with Carmen San Diego. At the bottom, we provide a full list of the sharing rules that you've created for the app. And we will see that while Harry is meeting the rule for a section grade, so he has a section that's either grades 1 through 6, and that's identified by this green check mark, that he doesn't meet the second filter, his subject being English language arts or social studies. So anything that has a red exclamation mark beside of it in your rules, that's going to signal to you, well, they meet this part, but they don't meet the second part. That's why they're not shared. Just like in troubleshoot login, we have cool links under details so that you can view the student or the app profile. We'll take a quick look at Harry's profile. And when looking at his sections, we'll see that he only has one section and it has the subject of homeroom advisory. This checks out with what the troubleshoot sharing tool has identified as the issue. Up top, you'll see that we have some recommended next steps. To resolve this sharing issue, we'll need to do one of the following. Either adjust the current sharing rule to include homeroom advisory sections, create a new rule that includes Harry, or we can enroll Harry in an English language arts or a social studies section so that he meets all of the requirements for this current sharing rule. We love both of these tools, both troubleshoot login and troubleshoot sharing. So we just want to give you a quick overview of which tools are available to which users. Troubleshoot login is available to your Clever admin, your district help desk users, and your school tech leads. Troubleshoot sharing is available to the personas that can edit the sharing permissions, which would be your Clever admin and your district help desk users. Before we move on, we also wanted to share advice on how to approach setting your account up for success in regards to sharing rules. First, we recommend keeping your sharing simple. When possible, share by district or share by school. When you need to be more specific, keep that share by rule as simple and precise as possible. When you're unsure of why a user isn't shared, use that troubleshoot sharing tool we just demoed. It's going to save you a lot of time and effort getting you directly to the solution. When a sharing issue arises, when possible, fix it directly in your SIS. The most common reason that a user isn't shared is actually due to an enrollment issue within the SIS. And finally, proactively review your app sharing permissions before term rollover to confirm that the sharing settings match the usage and license requirements you have for your district for this upcoming school year. Taking a few moments now before the semester starts is going to save you so many emails from your teachers and students who might be missing applications in their Clever portal come your first day of school.
Those are some great tips, Jess, and ones that I wish I learned earlier in my support career. So thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to tackle that big topic of the day that 52% of you said is top of mind for you, and that is sync and data errors. So we have a lot of ground that we're going to cover today on the topic, so we will be moving swiftly. But remember, not only are we going to share out the recording, but all this information is available in our help center at support.clever.com. So before we dive into specific troubleshooting steps, let's begin by refreshing everyone on the data syncing process. So for Clever, data flows in a 3-step process. First, Clever receives data from your district's student information system. Once that data is in Clever, you then decide what data you want to share with each of your application vendors. Finally, each of those application vendors will come to Clever and pull that data from our system to use and implement in their own platform. So when troubleshooting data errors, remembering the three-step process is key to accurately and quickly troubleshooting data issues. So when I'm actually bringing new people to Clever, new support team agents, I often encourage them to use this framework, which is when troubleshooting data issues, begin with asking the question, is the data correct in blank? And so, for example, if you hear about a data issue from a student or teacher, first ask yourself, is the data correct in my student information system? Because if the data is not correct in your SIS, then the solution is going to have to be, you're going to need to update that data in your SIS for it to be correct anywhere else. So if it's not correct in your SIS, fix it there. If the data is correct in your SIS, however, it's not correct in Clever, then you'll want to contact whoever is the party that manages your sync, which is also known as your sync manager. We're going to touch on this a little bit more in a second, but either way, if it's correct in your SIS, but not in Clever, contact your sync manager. And finally, if the data is correct in your SIS and in Clever, but it's not correct in the application vendor's platform, then you'll want to contact the application support team. Since each of our application partners manage pulling data from Clever for use in their own system, any errors in the application must be investigated by the application support team. Clever's team simply doesn't have the insight as to why that data may be incorrect, so we'll have to partner with them to figure that out. So on the previous screen, we actually mentioned the term sync manager, and this refers to the party that has configured and manages your daily sync between Clever and your district's SIS. Now, last year, you may not even realize, but we've helped you identify this for you on your own sync page in the Clever dashboard. So if on the left hand, you navigate to sync, right smack dab in the middle, you're going to see both how you sync to Clever and who manages that data sync. Now, there are a couple different options, so we want to bring some clarity to this because it can sometimes be confusing. If the sync manager says that it is the district administrator, actually, I see we're lagging there. There we go, we're caught up. Okay, if the sync manager says district administrator, this means that someone at your district, whether administrator or technology professional, but someone at your district has configured the sync between Clever and your SIS. So if there's any errors in the actual data files that are being sent to Clever, they will be the individual that will need to investigate the data error. Now, some districts may see their SIS as their sync manager. This means that the SIS has built a way to easily send data to Clever. But as such, since they built that actual sync between the SIS and Clever, if there are errors in your data files, those will need to be investigated in partnership with your SIS's support team. Finally, I know many of you are loving the Clever Managed Sync life and are leveraging an auto sync. And so you're going to see Clever as your sync manager. And for your districts, Clever manages pulling data from your SIS. As such, if you confirm that the data is correct in your SIS, but is not correct in Clever, first, you can begin actually by reviewing our sync documentation. There are basic requirements for each record in order to sync successfully to Clever. So we can outline that for you in our help center. But of course, you're going to then partner with our team, Clever Support, in order to figure out why something is not syncing correctly. So as always, if you are at all confused about who is your sync manager, reach out to our support team. We're happy to help and investigate. But hopefully this brings some clarity as to who to go to if the data is correct in your SIS, but is not correct in your data files that Clever is receiving.
Thanks, Alex. That's great info. There are two main types of sync errors in Clever. The first being an account level sync error, which is preventing the data from syncing from your SIS to Clever successfully. The great news is that we have documented steps on how to resolve these issues in our help center. All you need to do is copy the error message and enter it in the search bar at support.clever.com. And you'll see Alex has pulled up an example now. In the sync error section of the Help Center article, you will see the error message as well as how to resolve it. Once you have followed those steps to resolve the issue, the error will clear on the next sync. If you sync with Clever via SFTP, you can initiate a sync by sending a new set of data files to Clever. If you have a Clever managed sync, there is a Sync Now button on the Sync settings page in your Clever dashboard. I'm gonna wait till the screen loads.
We're getting there, Jess. We're slowing down, but I'm sure it'll change in a moment.
Zoom's not being our friend today.
There we go.
There we go.
I'll press the next one 30 seconds ahead, I promise.
Okay, sounds like a plan. The other type of sync errors are record specific, meaning that there's a sync error for a specific user or a section or school in your data files. When you're on that sync page, you're going to see the errors, and they can be reviewed by clicking the Download Changes button. We have also documented all of these error messages and steps how to resolve them in our Help Center. There are two that we get a lot of questions about on the support team. So we'll just go ahead and hit those now, just in case you have one of these hanging out on your account and you want to know how to fix it. The first one is duplicate identifier. As you may know, Clever IDs must be unique to each user. So that's the SIS ID that you're sending to identify a student or a teacher or a staff member. When you see this duplicate identifier info, error message, you're going to want to begin by confirming that that ID actually isn't assigned to two people. The error is usually the result of the user being enrolled at multiple schools. Most student information systems, when they send data over to Clever, they export the user once per school that they're associated with, and this will prompt an error of that type. No need to worry though, the user will successfully sync to Clever and be connected to all of their sections across all of their schools. As such, the duplicate identifier error can almost always be ignored. The second error we see a lot of is about enrollments, specifically that there's no students or no enrollments found for a specific section. Sections must have at least one active student in order to process. So let's say we get a file that says section 123 exists, but that enrollments file doesn't have any students enrolled in section 123. In that case, we won't upload section 123 to Clever. This error is typically common prior to a term when your enrollments are still being finalized. This error can also occur if you have a school ID, a section ID, or a student ID that isn't consistent across your 5 CSV files. Once you've got the enrollments finalized in your SIS, and there's at least one student enrolled in each of your sections, you'll have a successful sync to Clever.
Thanks for those tips on SFTP and great error message stuff in there. As we're moving over, I did not press, sorry, I lied to you, Jess. I did not press it far enough in advance. I'll catch up here in a second. I know that a lot of you are leveraging a Clever managed sync, meaning that Clever is owning the process of pulling data from your SIS and bringing it into our system. So if you ever have a data or sync issue, we highly encourage you to check out the documentation that we have in our Help Center for your SIS. So we have an article for each and every one. And so inside of it, actually, I'm just going to go and see. There we go. We catched up. Every single article, we have a few different sections that are going to be helpful for you at any time during the school year. So for example, we have a sync overview, which says, what are the general properties of this sync? How often does it sync? Does it support co-teachers? You know, a lot of the basics that you need to know in order to really be successful with your data. Additionally, we have those really helpful criteria for troubleshooting missing data. So for example, as you can see here, in this example for PowerSchool, we can see that if you're missing a teacher, one of the first things that you're going to want to do is to make sure that that teacher is active, that they're assigned to a school that's not the district office, and that they're in an active status, which is 1 in PowerSchool. And so we have this for every single one of our, each one of our syncs, and it outlines all the requirements for all the different records in Clever. Also, we know that we're approaching that rollover. If you haven't done so already, I know you will be soon. We do give you rollover directions for your specific SIS. Generally, we have rolled over most of you to your next school year, and you should be seeing that data in Clever as soon as it's published. However, for a few of you, such as Infinite Campus, there are some specific directions on when you can anticipate having that data active in your system. So head over to support.clever.com, search for your SIS, and check out those details. And so that is the conclusion of our main section. And I love it. We have plenty of time for Q&A. But before we jump into that, we are going to have one more quick poll. We would love to know which resources or tools are new to you that you're going to try. It could be maybe you're going to try that troubleshoot sharing tool that we just released. I know our team is already using it a lot. Is it the troubleshoot login tool? Are you going to dive into some of our error documentation, or maybe even just dive in with our Clever Managed Sync docs as well? I'm interested to know what is going to be helpful to all of you during this season. Now, Jess, I'm not able to see the poll. I think that you can.
Oh, I can see it, and I'm loving the results. So we can talk through it here. We have a whopping 74% who are going to try out the troubleshoot sharing tool, 55 looking at the troubleshoot login. And I just want to say, guys, we are more than happy to help you on support to troubleshoot these sharing and login issues. But we wanted to give you that tool. So if you're in a hurry, you can go in and take a look at it yourself. So don't hesitate to still reach out to us, but I'm so happy that you guys love these tools. And then we've got 19% looking at some sync error documentation and 23 at Clever Managed.
Jess, can you even think about how much time we have spent just switching between an app's sharing rules and a student's profile, just like going back and forth, checking each item? I'm pretty sure I have half my gray hair just from the time I spent doing that for people.
I've got a couple strands too. I've only been here for a little over 2 years, but I don't think they were here before that. But yeah, and those two links, like the link directly to the student's profile and directly to the app profile, even open in a new tab for you. So you don't have to worry about losing that page that had your results on it. It's pretty cool.
Yep. So as you can tell, we have all this documented for you in our help center. We love it. We actually use it as our own resource constantly as a support team and as a Clever team, as a wealth of resources, whether it be troubleshooting guides or how-tos on basic functionality. And so it's always at your fingertips and accessible to you. So you can view all of this documentation and these recommendations at support.clever.com. And we're also going to drop a link to that PDF again that has links to today's resources in that chat, so you have access to that as well. And we also wanted to highlight that we have a webinar tomorrow on how to train your teachers on Clever. So how to make sure that those that are directly in the classroom are positioned to use Clever's platform to the fullest and be successful for the next school year. So there is a chat that we'll post in the link, and you can also find that webinar by going to clever.com/events. And so please feel free to share this out with anyone who might be training your teacher. So it could be you, it could be a school tech lead like we talked about earlier, but definitely want to make sure that you have that accessible to you. And I think it's going to be a great one. You're really going to love it. So we are going to jump over into our Q&A now. So I'm going to stop sharing so that Jess and I are front and center. So we do have a lot of questions that are already answered async, by our wonderful team here with Sinclair and Josh, but we also want to just answer some of these in live because we have some really, really good ones. So let me go in here first. And so Jess, I think this first one is really great for you. So the question is, how do backup login codes know which applications a student needs access to? So like, is a backup login code specific to an application, or can they use it to access anything?
Great question. So backup login codes get students into Clever. They are not app specific, they're specific to that student. So if a user has trouble accessing a specific app, you'll still want to hop over to that troubleshoot login tool. But the backup login code, use that anytime someone's unable to log into Clever. That'll get them in. So
short story, the backup login code that gets them into Clever is the same Clever that they see every day.
Once they're into Clever, it connects them to all of the same apps that they would have as long as they logged in the regular way.
Yep, absolutely. Here is another really simple one that I know that we covered, but let's just reiterate. So there's a question on what roles have access to the troubleshooting tools. So those two tools that you demoed, just
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So troubleshoot logins is going to be Clever Admin, District Help Desk, and School Tech Leads. And then your troubleshoot sharing. Oh, thanks for pulling that up, Alex. And then the troubleshoot sharing tool, we've only made that available to people who can actually share, adjust those sharing permissions. So it's going to be your Clever Admin and your District Help Desk users.
exactly. Thanks for going over that again, Jess.
Yeah.
And everyone, we're going to have this slide and what we share out after today's webinar, so you'll have access to this as well. Let me find my doc again. Okay. Now here's another great question that's related to kind of school tech leads and who has access to some of these things. There's a great question about, can school tech leads be a tech lead for more than one school?
Absolutely. Your school tech leads can be assigned to a single school, just a few schools, or you even have the option to assign them to all schools in your district.
Great.
So there should be an edit button. If you look at that school tech leads profile, there should be an edit button for them where you see the options for their schools. And you can also add that to your files if you're syncing that way.
Absolutely. Here's one that I'm going to try to tackle for us. It's a big one, but there were some questions about like, what is SFTP and Clever Managed Sync? I know that we threw some lingo at all of you. So to clarify, there are basically two sync methods on how to get your data from your student information system to Clever. And so one of them is what we call a Clever Managed Sync or an auto sync. That means that you have configured a way for Clever to easily and securely come and pull that data from your SIS and import it to our system for you to use with your application vendors. So that's called a Clever Managed Sync. And once you set it up, Clever takes the day-to-day duties off your hands, and we're here to troubleshoot and manage all of those data sync issues for you. Now, for those that maybe want a little bit more flexibility or are using a student information system for which we don't have a Clever Managed Sync, you're syncing via what we call SFTP, which stands for Secure File Transfer Protocol. And basically, that simply means is that we receive data or CSV files from your district on a regular cadence to use in our system. And so if you sync via SFTP, that means that essentially there's a send of CSV files on a daily basis to our system, and then we process that data for you to use with your application vendor. So simply said, SFTP means that you manage sending data to Clever. Clever manage things. That means that we manage pulling that data for using Clever.
Great explanation, Alex. And I just popped a Help Center article into the chat that you guys should all be able to see. While I'm pretty sure the majority of you already have your sync type set, no need to worry about changing it, but it does review just the different types of syncs for you.
And I see a great question here from Aaron. And just want to share, because it's a common one that we get all the time, is how long does it actually take for my sync to process? And this is actually pretty universal. So most sync types, regardless if it's SFTP or if it's a Clever Managed Sync, takes about 15 minutes for the data to process. So from the time that you press sync now or that you send those files over to Clever, generally about 15 minutes is what you see, because we need to actually take that data, double check to make sure that there's no big errors that are going to cause problems for your students and teachers, and then actually make that live in the system. So it can, of course, be a little bit slower depending on if you're a really large district, but 15 minutes is a good general rule for how long you can expect for that to take.
Alex, I'll add to that just a little bit because I know there's sometimes some confusion. Once you get that new data into Clever, keep in mind all of our app partners still pull that data from Clever. So it's up to them to come over and see those changes that you've made. So typically our apps pull on a nightly basis. If you've updated your data in Clever today, you've sent us new students, new enrollments, you've done some editing to your sharing permissions. Typically those changes are going to push to your app the next day. We say within 24 hours, but it's usually overnight.
Mm-hmm. Great point with that. I see a good one here about Jess. You had a great recommendation in your tips and tricks about sharing permissions, where you said keep sharing rules or sharing permissions as simple as possible.
Yep.
And so, can you share just a little bit more about what you mean by this? Because, of course, we don't want to overshare data, right? We want to make sure that applications only have access to the data that is appropriate for the contract or the relationship. But what can you just share, like what you may mean as far as why someone might choose share by district or share by school versus using sharing rules?
Absolutely. So share by district is kind of the highest level of sharing. You're not going to get very granular with that. We see that used a lot for applications where literally everything in Clever, every user, every section needs access to that specific application. Share by schools breaks it down just a tad bit further. So instead of saying share every single piece of my district with the application, only share all the pieces of the data for this subset of schools in my district. And then share by rules, which I know a lot of you guys use, and it's an awesome feature. That's where you get really granular with the rules. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'll show you these rules for the Carmen Sandiego app we were looking at earlier. And what you'll see here is we only have one rule. I'm going to actually zoom in. Maybe you can see it a little better. We only have one rule created here. We've kept it very simple. We are saying share all of the sections in which the grade is 1 through 6, or the subject is English language arts or social studies. Where I'm saying keep these rules basic, this is a very basic one. It's very clear, cut, dry. You know exactly what should be shared. All sections, if they have both a grade level of 1 through 6, as well as a subject of English language arts or social studies. Where it gets a little bit more difficult to troubleshoot is if you continue to add information to this. So let's say you want to share all of these, but you want to add another filter. And maybe you want to specifically roll out a couple of teachers, which is perfectly fine. You can do that. Just know the more detailed you get in these, the less data that is going to be sent to the application. So try to just keep them simple as possible and make sure exactly what you have identified here is what you truly want to be sent to the application. That answer the question, Alex?
I think so, yeah. And what I would also share is, like, if you're ever wondering what is the best way to share data with an application, maybe you do need to be more specific, right? We know that there are many vendors that you might partner with that are being utilized in just a few classrooms for very specific purposes. And so you can always reach out to our team and say, hey, I know that we're going to be using it in these types of classrooms. What is the most accurate but simple way that I can isolate that data? And we are absolutely happy to help you with that. The basic recommendation that we have, though, is generally share by section is one of the easiest ways to identify and isolate data. So if once you go to share by rules, if you need to think about which selection you want to choose, share by section is usually the most robust and easiest way to get specific when you need to do so.
I agree with that. Share by rules and then further by sections is always my go-to when helping people out.
Yep. So I have I'm going to jump back to the sync types one more time, because I think a lot of people are really interested by SFTP versus Clever Managed. And there's a great question of what is the benefit of Clever Managed Sync or SFTP? And this is something that we actually consult on a lot, especially with newer accounts. And I really think that it really does depend on your use case.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, we see SFTP being used by either districts that are using an SIS that maybe doesn't have a Clever Managed Sync, or we see it being utilized by districts that maybe want to have high level of control and granularity about how they bring in data from their files. So generally, it's our larger districts that have technology specialists that can do scripting and fancy things that maybe some people at smaller districts just don't have the resourcing to do. So if you are a larger district, I think SFTP is actually a great option because your data sets are very large and you probably do need to be very specific in how you generate your files and get that data to Clever. However, for most districts, smaller and medium-sized districts, if we have a Clever Managed Sync, I recommend using it. They are really solid options. They're super fast to set up. We have really great documentation on how to troubleshoot issues, and you just know that it's going to work. And so with the Clever Managed Sync, if something goes wrong, you can reach out to our team and we are there for you. And with an SFTP, we can't always necessarily assist because we can't always see how you're generating your files, whether it be scripted or otherwise. So it's just a little bit more difficult for us to help you when the need does arise. So hopefully that brings a little bit of clarity. I really love Clever Managed Syncs for those who can leverage it. And okay, I see a couple more here. Thank you for everyone who's holding it. We're getting a lot of great questions. We're getting a little bit more specific now. So I hope, so if you need to, if it's not specific to you, hold on, we might get to something that is. I see that there is a question here about the recommended sync type for Infinite Campus. So Infinite Campus, we do have 2 different sync types. Jess, do you want to tackle that one, or if not, I can? Okay, I can take it.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Go ahead.
Okay, so we have 2 different sync types. One is through the Infinite Campus's One Roster API, and the other one is using a more traditional Clever Managed auto sync, and we don't, and it's through data export, not through the API. And generally, the rule of thumb is that if you have pretty straightforward data needs, the One Roster API is excellent and is good for you. It's super easy to set up and super fast. However, if you do have some customization that is necessary, or if you need really robust student demographic data, such as free and reduced lunch status, whether or not someone has an IEP, that data is not always accessible via the One Roster API. So you want to go with the Infinite Campus AutoSync, as we call it, the non-API version. So hopefully that one's helpful. I know it's very specific to our Infinite Campus users out there, but API, if you have simple needs, that's perfect for you. If you need customization, go with our other method. And great. So I see one more question that is really top of mind for us, because I know we're getting a ton of them this year, and that is what we call SAS conversions or SIS changes. So for example, this year we saw the entire state of Alabama switch over to Power School, and they needed to change how their districts were syncing with Clever. And the question is, how easy is it to switch from SFTP to a Clever Managed Sync, or even between SASs? Jess, can you share just a little bit about what that process might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have to do on our end, our main goal is making sure that your students and teachers don't get duplicated within their applications. So a lot of time, if you're switching from one SIS to another, that unique identifier that's being sent to us from your original SIS probably won't be the exact same as your second SIS. That being said, we just have to run a matchmaker process on our end so that we don't duplicate those counts, and so that students don't lose access to their applications. They don't lose any historical data. And the same thing with switching from like SFTP or over to a Clever Managed Sync. We just want to make sure that your data is still accurate. We want to keep that integrity of the data. So while I say it's not really a difficult process to do, it is something that's a little bit timely. We normally say it's going to take about 2 weeks, and during that time frame, your students and teachers may lose access to their applications. So if it's something you're considering, just keep that time frame in mind.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Jess. And to be very honest with everyone, we do have a lot of districts going through SAS conversions this year. So if you are interested in either going from SFTP to a Clever Managed Sync, or maybe you are changing your student information system entirely, the sooner that you can get your data into that student information system and ready to go, and give Clever's team time to do that changeover, the more lead time that you can give us, the better, because we do want to ensure that we can get to everyone as quickly as possible, but do it in a way that is also ensuring the integrity of everyone's accounts. We're not going to rush anyone's accounts, but we do want to make sure that we're taking our time and getting you ready for your first day of school at the same time. So I think that is actually all of our primary questions, Jess. High five.
I think so.
Great job. Hopefully this was a helpful webinar for all of you. Our support team has been so excited to bring some of our tips and tricks and share some of these tools. And so we're so happy that we're able to do this. We will share out this recording afterwards. And I know that some of you probably have lingering questions. We hopefully answered a lot of things for you, but I'm sure that in the process, we also generated some new questions. So feel free to reach out to our team at support.clever.com. You can search our documentation, you can create a case with our team. We're happy to help. And then, of course, do feel free to share out this recording at clever.com/events. It'll be linked there. We're also going to have an email. Send it to your other colleagues at your district. Send it to colleagues at other districts. We think that there's a lot of helpful content in here and want to make sure that it gets out to the world. So feel free to share, even with those who weren't able to join us today. So thanks to all of you. Thank you to Jess for coming here today and sharing all of her expertise. And we look forward to seeing all of you throughout back to school. Have a great season.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.